Folks, check out this latest announcement from one of Biden's key advisors, Jake Sullivan.
Just last month, President Biden asked Congress for additional funds that would have the impact of increasing World Bank financing by more than $25 billion.
Given that you said bolstering the World Bank is not about countering China, in this country, credit card delinquencies have spiked, mortgage rates are through the roof, inflation remains a problem. Meanwhile, the federal deficit this year has almost tripled, and the president wants to increase funding to foreign nations through the World Bank. How is that fair to citizen in, say, Scranton?
Look, I think citizens in Scranton recognize that problems that happen overseas don't stay overseas. They come here too, at great cost to working people. Greater prosperity, greater capacity in the rest of the world, that is going to end up reducing the costs and burdens on working people in Scranton or Minneapolis or any of your all's hometowns.
Greater prosperity by sending money overseas is going to strengthen us and our economy. I mean, that reporter's question was spot on. As he says, how is this fair to the American people sending $25 billion to the World Bank? I mean, what's the real reason here, right? And his answer is stunning and quite honestly, just a flat out lie. Sending $25 billion to the World Bank will do nothing for the people in despair here in this country. And they send $700 to the people in Lahaina. By the way, speaking of Lahaina, do you know how much they estimate it would cost to rebuild Lahaina? The number I'm hearing is right around $5 billion. So here's a crazy idea. Call me nuts. How about we send $5 billion to Maui, and then we send the World Bank $20 billion instead of the 25? Now, look, I'm not saying, it's hypothetical, I'm not saying that the federal government is responsible for rebuilding Lahaina, but you get my point of what I'm trying to say here. The priorities are just so far off. Let's be honest, the government does not care about its own people. I mean, just look at their actions, not their words. I mean, when is this administration going to finally start looking out for the American people? We've got $140 billion we sent to Ukraine, and that number is continuing to go up. As I talked about last week, $150 billion per year for this border crisis. $150 billion per year and growing. Now, $25 billion to the World Bank, and I am just scratching the surface on the amount of money that we send around the world to these other countries. I just saw this. Did you know that we give foreign aid to China? That's right. We give foreign aid, foreign money to China. And this latest news that came out on Monday, 9/11 of all days, they announced that they are giving we are giving $6 billion to Iran for a hostage swap. $6 billion. Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. It's the same country that chants death to America, and we're giving them $6 billion. I mean, what do you think they'll use that money for, right? And by the way, this hostage swap, we're giving them five hostages that we have, and they're giving us 5 hostages that they have. Fair deal, right? But no, we have to throw in another $6 billion on top of that to make this deal go through. It just makes no sense at all. Once again, out-negotiated. I mean, that's what happens when you appoint weak people in position of power. These people have no real-life experience, no business sense, no negotiation skills. All they know how to do is to spend our money with no regard for the American people. I mean, it's not their money, right? So who cares? And let me ask you this question. Will this $6 billion serve to embolden terrorists to take more U.S. hostages or prevent hostage taking in the future? Well, I think you know the answer to that, right? $6 billion for 5 hostages. And it's great these hostages are coming home, but that's $1.2 billion per hostage. I mean, it's a pretty good incentive to kidnap more Americans, I would think, right? Oh, and then this one. Did you hear this one? The Pentagon recently announced that due to an accounting error, they sent an extra $6.2 billion to Ukraine. Whoops, $6.2 billion due to an accounting error. This morning, I looked at the U.S. debt clock, and if you haven't seen this clock, it will blow your mind. It's our debt growing in real time, and you should really check it out. It's at usdebt.org. We are a few weeks, maybe a few months away from hitting $33 trillion in debt. And that doesn't include the $194 trillion in unfunded liabilities we are obligated to pay in the future. $33 trillion is the equivalent of $254,000 per taxpayer, which is now costing us, get this, $673 billion just in interest alone to service that debt. That's $673 billion that we spend on interest alone. It's getting close to what we spend on all of our defense spending. I mean, is all of this borrowing and needless spending on other countries, is this helping our economy? How about the housing market? How about the stock market? Our financial institutions? Main Street America? How about Social Security and Medicare? Is this helping the future of our country? Of course it's not. And sadly, I share these numbers with people all the time. And the response is they look at me cross-eyed and they just shrug their shoulders and they say, well, who cares? It won't affect me. Can I now get back to my TikTok videos? And I'm serious. That's the response that I get. Look, as I said before, we are living in very dark times. And the problem is that most people are getting used to the darkness. All right, I'm already getting ramped up as I always do. Folks, we got a packed show again today, and I want to dive right in. I'm getting a lot of questions about people's retirement and 401k retirement plans or workplace retirement plans in general. And I want to address this and demystify all the nonsense, all the BS that's being talked about, because I sense a growing number of people are getting very concerned about their financial future. And by the way, what I'm about to share is for anybody, regardless of their age. But you really could be helping out a lot of young people if you share this particular episode with them. It could go a long way for their financial future. And then I'll also say, although my focus is going to be on the 401k plan, most people around the world have a similar workplace retirement plan. So this is very pertinent to anyone, no matter where you live. And by the way, I am not here to defend the 401k. You do what you want to do. All I want to do is show you the other side of the coin and debunk a lot of the BS that you're hearing from the quote experts or the pundits. Because this is a very serious topic, and the misinformation that people are getting can be extremely dangerous for people's ability to survive during their retirement years. In fact, a Wall Street article just came out a couple of days ago, which I'll talk about in the lightning round, but it's all about the rising number of baby boomers that are now homeless. Really, really sad thing that's happening right now. So we got another lightning round and more stories that you need to be aware of that'll make your head spin. And of course, our sound bite of the week. And this one is absolutely insane. Folks, here we go.
If you have concerns about your financial future, let's be honest, the world shapes your wallet. We're taking you behind the scenes to look at what's really happening in the real world. Inform, prepare, and empower. This is the Full Disclosure Podcast with your host, John MacGregor.
As always, great to be with you again. And please keep those comments coming. And thank you so much for all of your positive support. I greatly appreciate your encouragement. It really charges my batteries to make this show as best as I can. And thanks for sharing this show with others. I really appreciate that. Oh, and by the way, announcement here. I finally finished a book I've been working on for some time now. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Wealth, a guide to achieving financial independence and living life on your own terms. I think you're really going to like it. It's here where I break down why most people struggle financially, why most people are taking the wrong approach. And then I reveal a proven and effective process to get not only your financial life in order, but your overall life as well. The PDF is free, and the audio version that I personally read is, I think, right around $7. And I strongly believe, and I've seen it firsthand, that if you follow the process that I reveal, your life will dramatically change for the better. So you can check it out at my website, johnmacgregor.net. All right, so let's dig in. I've been in the trenches with thousands of individuals of all walks of life, rich, poor, young, old, male, female, and all in between. And I've circled the globe in the financial industry, and I've seen firsthand how and why most people struggle financially. Why a majority of people, 78% of working adults, are living paycheck to paycheck. And by the way, that number was 73% in 2015. So the problem here is getting worse, not better, despite all the information people have at their fingertips. And by the way, most of that information is free, telling you exactly what you need to do to get your financial life in order. I mean, folks, there is a massive retirement crisis that's facing everyone in this world, and I'm afraid it's only going to get worse. And in my experience, here's the problem. My experience is that too many people are using hope as their retirement strategy. In other words, they just hope everything will work out in the end. Folks, I'm here to tell you, hope is not a retirement strategy. And today, more than ever, people need to take control of their own financial situation and not rely on somebody else or some company to take care of them. And a big problem I see so often are that so many quote experts with large followings telling people not to participate in a 401k type retirement plan. Now, I've had this debate many times on the Rich Dad radio show and other shows. So today, I want to share with you the other side of the coin and tell you why I think most people should be participating in these retirement plans. So look, at a high level in the financial planning world, we often refer to the three-legged stool, right? The first leg is your personal savings. This is the amount of money that you've put away yourself for your future. And right now, get this, 64% of people could not come up with $500 for an emergency expense. Let me repeat that. 64% of people could not come up with $500 for an emergency expense. In fact, Kamala Harris admitted this out loud, which I think she now regrets, on stage to a large audience that most Americans are a $500 expense away from bankruptcy. So that first leg of the stool, personal savings, doesn't really exist for most people. The second leg of the stool is a government-sponsored retirement plan. In the United States, that would be Social Security. And right now, based on pure math of what's coming into the Social Security Trust Fund and what's going out, Social Security will be insolvent by 2033. And if I do my math right, that's 10 years from now. And the average monthly Social Security check for most people is around $1,300. I mean, how long will that last throughout retirement for most people? And when Social Security does become insolvent, they'll be forced to slash that benefit. So now that second leg of the stool really doesn't exist either, or really not much, right? And that leads us to the third leg of the stool, which is a workplace retirement plan. And here's where the naysayers come in and that really don't understand the big picture. They'll say stuff like 401k is a ripoff, it's a Wall Street scam. I often hear it's impossible to be a millionaire with a 401k plan. And I'm going to debunk that in a moment. They say the fees are exorbitant. On the other hand, these same people will argue how much better a pension plan is versus a 401k plan. Because a pension, as they say, provides a guaranteed fixed amount of income every single month for the rest of that individual's life. Well, at least it's supposed to. And if the retiree chooses to, that person could have a portion of that monthly payment when they die for their surviving spouse for the rest of his or her life. I mean, look, that all sounds great in a vacuum, right? But sadly, that's not what's happening today. And we're going to talk about that. I also hear the misinformed experts say, you're an idiot if you invest in a 401k plan. And in my strong opinion, that's just flat out wrong on so many levels. And not only wrong, it's dangerous, which I'm going to get into. And then I'll hear this one. They say, John, how can you say a 401k is good when the median 401k account balance for someone 65 is only $80,000? Right around that. You know, let me repeat that because I've thrown a lot of numbers at you. They'll say that the average 401k balance for someone 65 years old is around $80,000. I'm going to break that down for you in just a moment. So going back to what the three-legged stool. So despite personal savings, as I just mentioned, being next to nothing, despite the insolvency of Social Security and these other government retirement plans, the 401k is really the only retirement plan that most people have access to. And of course, a measly Social Security check, right? where most of that money, frankly, is being used to cover health insurance during retirement. So first off, let me address pensions. For years, counseling individuals who have a workplace pension, they always rested easy, knowing that when they retired after 30 years of working hard, they'd have this guaranteed check for the rest of their life. And they'd say to me, John, it's guaranteed. It's in writing. Here's the contract that says they're going to pay me for the rest of my life and my spouse's life as well. Folks, here's the hard reality. Most pension plans, government and corporate, are severely underfunded. And this is all due to mismanagement of the funds. And I could do a whole show on that. It's also due to excessive fees by the investment managers that they hide. And lastly, very poor actuarial and investment return assumptions. So in other words, these pensions are running out of money. And as a result, we're seeing these pensions invested in riskier assets like private equity and hedge funds. And they're now leveraging their portfolios to seek higher returns to make up for the shortfalls. So they're taking an inordinate amount of risk with stuff they know nothing about. You have individuals that are sitting on the investment committees that have no investment experience at all, and they're being bamboozled by slick Wall Street salesmen. So at the end of the day, and again, I can talk all day about this, these pension plans are underwater and will not be able to pay the benefits that they promised. Now, not all of them, of course, but a big portion of them for sure. So what's going to happen? As a result, we're now seeing a wave of litigation where these companies or organizations with pension plans for their employees, they're taking these promises to court with the goal of cutting these promised pension benefits. And they're winning. We are now seeing promised and guaranteed pension benefits slashed by up to 50%. So someone who worked for a company for 35 years, who was loyal and hardworking, who was assured that they would be taken care of during their retirement with this pension, is now having to face a broken promise and being forced to either continue working or severely minimize their retirement lifestyle. And here's just one example. Here's the Ohio pension system slashing benefits to over 1 million people, many of whom have already retired.
Retirement's at risk right now. The financial future for tens of thousands of people in the Buckeye State is looking bleak.
This as 3 more multi-employer pension plans in Ohio asked the Treasury Department for permission to reduce benefits to prevent insolvency. Their request currently under review. News 5's Mike Brookbank joins us now. Mike, this is a nationwide cash flow crisis. It's actually been brewing for decades now.
Yeah, Danita and Frank, hundreds of retirees here in Northeast Ohio already feeling the pinch. Iron Workers Union 17, the first in the country to get the okay to slash benefits. Tonight, as lawmakers race to solve this complex issue, a retired iron worker worries his struggles will soon be reality for so many others. Sitting on the porch, reading the paper. It's the simple things Larry Burrell appreciates in retirement.
Every holiday there is, I missed because I had to work.
However, that paper he's holding is dropped off by a neighbor each day.
Yeah, he comes over and gives me the paper.
Because Burrell can no longer afford a subscription.
We have to be very careful with our money.
The ironworker's pension cut nearly 60% in a move by his union to save the retirement plan.
I said they're cutting payments up to 50%. They just said 60%. This guy can't afford a newspaper. I mean, it's just so sad. And this is happening all around the globe. And by the way, all of this is why a number of companies offering pension plans are quickly shrinking. So this is why I'm not a big fan of pensions, especially today. I mean, I would hate to bust my ass for 30 years with some promise of being paid a monthly retirement check, then suddenly waking up and realizing it was all a pipe dream, right? So that's my take on the pension plans. And I'm afraid these plans are going to continue to drop in value, which will make it even harder to fulfill their promises. Okay, so let's switch gears and let's talk about the 401k or your workplace retirement plan, which is also known as a defined contribution plan. Now, look, let me just start by saying the 401k is not the be-all, end-all retirement plan, and it was never designed to be the sole retirement plan for individuals. It was designed to be a supplemental plan to someone's pension plan. We all just talked about what's happening with pensions. So this notion that I think it's the greatest thing in the world is just not true. But for most people today, other than Social Security, it's the only plan that exists. And all those naysayers, those misinformed experts, those critics who have no idea what they're talking about, have yet to come up with an alternative solution. They just keep spewing this nonsense to get headlines and clicks, which is really making this retirement crisis even worse because it's scaring people into not using them. It is a fact that there are 135 million W-2 full-time employees. These are all 401k eligible individuals. And let's be honest, 99% of them will be employees for the rest of their lives. Maybe 1% of them will leave to start their own business and build wealth outside of their company, and that's great. I wish more people would do the same. But if those 135 million people took the advice of those experts and simply avoided the 401k and didn't participate, what do you think that would do to this retirement crisis that's already getting worse? Would it make it better or worse? And I know the rebuttal from people. I can already hear the comments. John, they have every opportunity to build a business, become entrepreneurs, and build wealth themselves. I agree, absolutely. But that's just not a reality for most people. There will always be millions and millions of employees, and we need a retirement program for the masses. And right now, the 401k is pretty much the only game in town. And please, I welcome your thoughts on this. I would love to hear what you think. Perhaps even you have a solution that would work, because right now, the only other solution I can think of is universal basic income, or UBI, which is basically a free check from the government every month, which they're trying to push, by the way. And folks, UBI is the last thing we should be doing on a ton of levels. And as I said earlier, the experts say that the 401k is a scam, right? Because they point out that the median 401k balance for someone 65 years old or older is around $80,000. And they blame the 401k plan for that. To me, that's like blaming the treadmill for America's obesity problem. It's not the treadmill, folks. It's that too many people eat too much and they don't use the treadmill. Compare that to the retirement space. It's because people spend too much money that they make and they don't maximize the 401k. And they typically wait too long to start. Let me just share this example with you. So for context, I'm going to use the S&P 500 index fund, which is a basket of the 500 largest companies in America. And this fund has produced, on average, a 10% rate of return over time. Now, that doesn't mean 10% every year. That means it's up 15% one year, down 4 the next, up 20, down 6, and so forth. But if you smooth out those returns over time, the S&P 500, which is a benchmark for the overall stock market, has produced a 10% average rate of return over time. So let me use this example. Take a young couple at the age of 26. They have a combined salary of $120,000 or $60,000 each. And they contribute 15% of their income, which would be $18,000 per year or $1,500 per month. Stay with me here. So they're contributing $18,000 per year or $1,500 per month, all right? Now, keep in mind, most 401k plans offer a match up to a certain point, which is another benefit to the 401k. So in this example, this couple would likely be putting away $14,000 of their own money, and the employer would be matching the additional $4,000, roughly speaking. And again, that's another reason why people should take advantage of the 401k, even if it's just up to the matching point, because that's free money your employer is giving you. Okay, so now the couple is contributing $14,000 per year. Now we're looking at $1,166 per month. Let's call it $1,200, making it even easier and affordable on this couple. And by the way, on a side note, if a couple earning $120,000 can't contribute $1,200 per month or $600 each, they really need to evaluate their spending. Something's really wrong with how they're managing their money. All right, so get this. $18,000 per year, right? They started at age 26 and they ended at 66, 40 years. So at an average rate of return of 10% that we just discussed, couple reaches 66 years old, which would be 40 years in this retirement. Get this, they would have $9.5 million waiting for them. That's the power of compounding, $9.5 million. So don't give me this BS that you can't become a millionaire with a 401k. Let's take it down a notch. Let's be a little conservative, and let's assume they got an 8% average return instead of the 10. After 40 years, when they hit 66 years old and ready to retire, they would have $5.4 million. I mean, just think about what that retirement could be with $5 million that you could actually access, get your hands on, unlike a pension. What about $9.7 million for retirement? So again, this idea that 401ks are awful, pensions are better, I think is a very faulty argument. Yes, with the pension, you're getting a regular monthly paycheck. At least you hope so, right? But there's no nest egg to tap into. And again, we just talked about how insolvent so many of these pension plans are. And by the way, there's a pretty cool website that I often use. It's called dinkytown.net. I know it's a strange name, but they have all kinds of great financial calculators, including mortgage calculators, loans, automobile, insurance, and of course, retirement and 401k. And for the 401k, you can look at all types of scenarios on how much money you make, how much you contribute, how old you are when you want to retire, and it'll give you a good idea how much money you'll have when you retire. So again, check it out. It's called dinkytown.net, dinky with a D as in David. So this idea, this BS that becoming a millionaire with a 401k is impossible is ridiculous. It's very possible. In fact, 2 weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal ran an article titled, "Stock Market Rally Makes More 401k Savers Millionaires." That's right. It goes on to say that the number of people with at least $1 million in their 401k account has grown about 25% this year. Fidelity Investments, one of the leaders in 401k plans, just them alone, they say that they've got 380,000 participants in Fidelity plans with seven-figure plus balances. Oh, and get this stat. The average age of a 401k millionaire is only 59. And by the way, on a side note, going back to the S&P 500, here's some great advice for most people from the great investor, Warren Buffett. Check it out.
I think it's the same thing that makes most sense practically all of the time. And that is to consistently buy an S&P 500 low-cost index fund. Keep buying it through thick and thin, and especially through thin, because the temptation gets, when you see bad headlines in newspapers, maybe to say, well, maybe I should skip a year or something. Just keep buying it. American business is going to do fine over time.
Great advice, especially in the thin times. Keep going. So these experts are telling people not to use a 401k. 135 million W-2 employees will never start their own business. They won't day trade. They won't buy commercial real estate, start their own business, and you're telling them not to use the 401k. You've got a wife that works as a housekeeper. You got a husband who's doing construction, and you're telling them not to participate in the retirement plan? I mean, what are these people going to do when they retire? If they don't have a 401k and they retire at 65, how are they going to survive? At least the 401k is giving some semblance of self-reliance and accountability for their own financial future. Sorry, I get ramped up on this topic because it's really scaring and hurting a lot of people. By telling people not to use a 401k, you're telling them they're stupid, and hence you're telling them that they're just going to rely on the government for their financial future. It's also really important to note the cost of waiting, because the sooner you start contributing, the better off you'll be big time. And I can show you examples of someone who starts at 25 versus someone who starts at 35. That 10-year difference of waiting can be the difference of millions of dollars at retirement. So don't start today, start now. So look, overall, the 401k was never designed to be the primary retirement vehicle, but that's what it's become, whether we like it or not. So if it's the only plan available, then I would use it. You get a tax deduction for all your contributions you make, the money grows tax deferred, and it's likely your employer is matching your contribution up to a certain point, which is just free money. And by the way, I have never, in the 30 years I've been doing this, or 28 to be exact, I have never heard a retiree say to me, "Gee, John, I really wish I'd put less into my 401k plan." I have never heard that statement. One word of caution are fees, and fees are inevitable, but you just need to make sure that you're picking investments that are low cost. That's why I prefer and I recommend low-cost index funds for you to use in your retirement plan, like that S&P 500 index plan that I mentioned. And over the years, There's been so much fee compression that you can get all funds, particularly index funds, with a very, very small fee structure. One last thing on this before we get to the lightning round. Don't forget to invest your money in the plan. Too many people contribute to the 401k, but then they fail to invest it. And right now, there's a significant portion of all 401k assets that are just sitting in cash. And if you need help trying to figure out the investments, just call the 401k provider that runs your plan. They have people sitting there waiting to help people decide what are the best investments for you. All right, so start today, start now. All right, let's get to the lightning round, shall we? And although this next story isn't somewhat related, I have to share it with you. And it just speaks volumes for the direction that this country, our society is headed in. And this kind of stuff, these little things actually do have a huge impact on our lives. Get this. An Alabama school suspends a first grader for making a finger gun while playing cops and robbers with another student. That's where we've come to, folks. Suspended for making a finger gun. According to the school district who sent the notice of suspension, said the first grader committed a Class 3 infraction. Not making this up. And Class 3 infractions are categorized as a major infraction under school policies that also include arson, bomb threats, and possession of explosives or firearms. Finger guns, while playing cops and robbers as a first grader, is the same as arson and possessing explosives. I mean, this is just bananas. I mean, don't you just feel that there's this huge push or there's this desire to weaken men in society? And it all starts at a very young age, right? Dr. Jordan Peterson sums it up brilliantly. He says, if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. That's so true. I briefly mentioned this story earlier, a Wall Street Journal article about more and more baby boomers sliding into homelessness. Data from the Department of Housing says that older adults are the fastest growing segment of the homeless population. One expert in this field said that we are seeing elderly homelessness, get this, at a rate that we have not seen since the Great Depression. The Great Depression. And high housing costs are a major factor, especially for seniors living on Social Security who are no longer working. And I hope this is a major wake-up call for everyone watching or listening to this. All right, folks, as you probably know, we have a huge organized shoplifting problem, and it's just getting worse by the day. And this is having a severe impact on our economy and our safety. And they now estimate that organized shoplifting is a $100 billion problem, which is only getting worse. And this theft it's hurting businesses, big and small, costing jobs and even lives. Companies like Walgreens, CVS, Whole Foods, Macy's, Nordstrom's, Dick's Sporting Goods, and hundreds of other high-end retailers and electronic stores are packing up and leaving these dangerous cities. There are videos of Beverly Hills basically showing store after store after store just closing up and shutting down. And these district attorneys, mainly funded by George Soros, are letting this happen on purpose. And this is impacting all of our lives, including our wallets. And this video is proof why this problem is only going to get worse. And it's all intentional, folks. Take a look.
So why is this uptick in crime happening? Well, let's think about it. Do we think this has to do with the fact that there's record unemployment in the United States right now? The fact that people are at a level of economic desperation that we have not seen since the Great Recession? Maybe this has to do with the fact that people aren't paying their rent and are scared to pay their rent. And so they go out and they need to feed their child and they don't have money. So you maybe have to, they're put in a position where they feel like they either need to shoplift some bread or go hungry that night.
I don't even know how to respond to that ridiculous statement. First of all, she starts off saying, let's think about this for a moment. I don't think she's thought about this at all. And in the end, she says we have record unemployment. Unemployment's at an all-time low. That means a lot of people are working. Look, I'm confident she doesn't even believe what she said. Most of these looters look pretty well fed to me, right? I mean, what an absolute embarrassment, which just proves they don't want to solve this problem. They want this problem to continue, fester, and get even worse. All right, Lastly, before we wrap it up and get to the soundbite, gas prices are going up, folks, and you've probably already felt the gut punch. And it's now estimated that Biden's war on energy has resulted in $100 up to $400 billion in lost oil output so far. Oil prices are getting close to $90 a barrel, and gas prices are headed back to $4 to $4.50 a gallon. I mean, it's a disaster for millions of people trying to make ends meet. I just paid $5 today per gallon to fill up my car. And it's estimated that if Biden hadn't decapitated the oil industry, which he did, we would have produced up to 4 billion more barrels of oil since Biden took office. And this extra oil we could have produced would have neutralized OPEC and Russia squeezing oil supplies in order to raise prices. But no, he destroyed it. I mean, he could care less about the American people and what everyone's going through. And now, to add insult to injury, Biden just announced another 1 million acres of prime oil and gas lands are off limits for drilling in Alaska. 1 million acres off limits. By the way, gas prices are up 11% in August, just in August. What do you think restricting another 1 million acres of highly productive oil land will do to the price of gas? It's just sad. It really, really is sad. Anyway, let's get on to the sound clip of the week, and this is mind-blowing. This is Matthew Liao, and he's an American philosopher specializing in bioethics. And keep in mind when you watch this, he is internationally known for his work on topics including children's rights and human rights. Internationally known for children's rights and human rights. Check this out.
People eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. Possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Internationally known for his work on human rights. He wants to genetically modify ticks so when they bite us, we become allergic to meat. Folks, he's not the only one saying this. This is growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. This is absolutely insane. And they're not even hiding it anymore, right? All right, let's end it on that. Great to be with you as always today. Don't forget my free new guide I just published titled The Ultimate Guide to Wealth, which is also available in audio form. You can find it on my website. And by the way, if you have any questions for the show, feel free to reach out at hello@johnmcgregor.net. I'd love to hear from you. And again, don't forget to hit subscribe and please continue to share this with others. We're all in this together, right? So with that, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Aloha. Take care.
Thanks for listening and supporting Full Disclosure. If you like this episode, remember to like and subscribe and follow Full Disclosure. To make a better financial plan for your future, join our Cash Flow Bootcamp, where John shows you a safe and smart way to turn your investments into a steady income stream in a fraction of your time. Learn to make money in any market. Until next time.